So let us begin. A very, very warm good morning to all of you. So glad to have you all here for this mentoring circle. I can see a lot of familiar faces. So good to see you all. And I see a few new faces and names as well. So welcome. This is a mentoring circle and part of a series of mentoring circles that we run every month. The whole idea is that we bring to you different experts from different walks of life who can come and share with us their expertise and their insights on a variety of topics that we feel would be helpful for our community. And on that note, we were really excited to have Gopal Iyer speak with us today on the topic of reimagining careers. Just to give you some context and to introduce Gopal, Gopal comes with over 17 years of experience across a variety of leading organizations. Currently, he's a senior leader at Ernst& Young, where he leads an initiative called Gig Now. And the whole idea behind Gig Now is how do you um, really create opportunities for gig workers? Because if one thing that is certain in terms of trends that in the world, in the kind of world that we're moving towards, we are going to see more and more people becoming part of the gig economy. So we thought Gopal would be the perfect person to come and speak to all of us today about how the economy is changing because of the pandemic, specifically the
That and
job
same.
opportunities, and and what does that mean for us? How do we take advantage of some of the changes that are happening? How can we benefit from that once we understand it better? So on that note, I'm thrilled to introduce to you and invite Gopal Iyer to come on and share with us his thoughts on this topic. Gopal, very warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much, Bhavna. Really appreciate the opportunity and would like to uh, just present my screen as well before we get started.
You should be able to share now.
It says, okay, perfect. Yeah. So again, I think I've been doing this kind of sessions for a lot of communities, but this community of people who we have today on the call are uniquely positioned to get most benefit out of the gig economy, and it would be a great opportunity for me to share some of our perspectives today. So thank you, Bhavna, for this opportunity. All that I would be sharing today is purely my own personal learnings as well as some of the things that we do within the organization. But take these perspectives as my personal views and not any advice from EY's perspective. I just wanted to share that ahead of when we begin. Do you all see my PPT on the screen?
Yes, and Gopal, if you could expand it and go full screen.
Yes.
Yeah,
Is this on the full screen model mode now or
perfect.
perfect? So I think if you really look into what's happening around us in terms of the world of work, there is transformation that's happening, and one of the things that we as part of EY keep doing is ask better questions. And the reason why we do that is because our purpose is to build a better working world. And we believe that only when you ask better questions, you'll get better answers, which will help us building a better working world. So you'll see series of few questions today on screen. And I think would want to start the first one with asking you all the question on, as the world transforms, is the future of work already here? And I think would be an interesting one to uh, see your responses on the chat, because it would be great to take on some of these thoughts as we move along. I'll speak for about 40-45 minutes. I'll try to keep it brief, open it up for Q&A. I want this to be as engaging as possible so that it makes more sense for all of us and learn collectively through our experiences. So feel free to keep putting the questions in the chat window. I'll be taking them during the course of the session or at the end of the session as the flow goes on. So let's do that. So what are we seeing right now? If you look at the current scenario, we are all, I mean, amidst a pandemic, mother of all pandemics is what they say, with COVID, and it not just is a health and an economic crisis all at once, but it also led to a situation where we are seeing a lot of unemployment. And there is an estimate which says over 81 million jobs in APAC alone is the outcome of the pandemic situation, which is just not going to help any of us as we move along. How did we come here? I mean, I think while of course we had the situation of lockdown, and that was a global response to this pandemic within any country for that matter, it also had an impact on the businesses, and not only businesses but also had impact on employers and job seekers. In terms of impact on business, the good impact, I would say, is most of us within the industry today understand the element of coexistence. That's a new mantra, right? I mean, we don't want to really do things at the cost of other businesses failing, because that's not going to help us be in the business for a longer run or sustainable in a way. uh, we learned how to reimagine our business operations. We no longer are in the business of looking at just demand creating supply, but in fact we led to a situation where it is now, right now, supply driven demand creation. And I think um, Zoom is a classic example. It has just phenomenally enhanced the way we interact, the way we collaborate, the way we connect with people. I'm on another call since morning 9 a.m. where I think I'm part of an workshop for 2 days where we have about close to 7,000 people in attending a session. And all of that is possible because, and these 7,000 people are people from the globe. And all of that is possible because of the fact that we have collaborative tools right now. And it is just creating a lot more avenues to think about businesses differently. Newer offerings for newer customers. And I think if you look at an offering that I think take any business for that matter, healthcare. I think if you look at healthcare, the focus for healthcare was something else pre-COVID. Right now, their entire focus is to ensure that people are vaccinated. Their entire focus is to treat people with COVID with utmost care, and in pursuit of that, they have been focusing on building the ecosystem for vaccinations. Of course, vaccine was the central point agenda for the last several months. And now that we have vaccines from different manufacturers, I think now the focus is how to deliver them. And we are trying to find newer customers which never existed in the past, right? I mean, that's the scale at which things are operating right now. Remote working was never an possibility for a lot of industries. And today, I think we all now realize the potential that remote working gives us. Of course, there is a lot yet untapped, which will probably be, I would say, tapped in the next few months, quarters, years. But it's a reality that exists. The challenging ones, I think, comfort zone factor. One of the biggest challenges that a lot of people, a lot of businesses encountered was that they were all in their comfort zones. They thought that this is just another pandemic, just another flu. We don't really need to worry about it. Remained rigid, inflexible about the businesses, and only to realize that it was too late for them to then flex. Even then, people who did flexible, I mean, who did flex rather, were able to find better opportunities for themselves, and were able to come back and do more business in the marketplace. A classic example, I would say, is when Uber got badly hit. during the pandemic. A lot of drivers went back to their hometowns. Now today, I think they are all back in whatever forms. But Uber and Ola and many other supply chain logistics businesses have now realized the potential of not just be in the business of moving people. They can now think about moving goods. They can move think about delivering goods. I mean, one of the things that people from Ola and Uber did during pandemic was even supply groceries, use the cars to be able to supply groceries to a lot of people where it was not a possibility. And one of the biggest challenges we had during the first few months of lockdown was we were not able to transport a lot of goods because of the fact that everything was shut down. And of course, the challenging one, the second and the biggest one, is liquidity. Remains to be a big concern for smaller enterprises, MSMEs especially, where they are not able to have access to credit as much as they would like to have. And I think with the new budgets and several initiatives that the government of India has done, they do now have ability to look at how they would want access to credit, but it still remains a bit of a challenge, which of course will unfold in the near future with a lot of money getting pumped into the business. Um, and the impact on employees and job seekers. And I think organizations realize that they need to really shift hiring patterns. They can't really do only a specific way of hiring people on full-time jobs. Remote working was reimagined by every organization at the end of the day. Every organization was forced to reimagine exceptional employee experience, because now that you were hiring people, you were onboarding them virtually, you were not being able to help them get an experience with people in physically. How could you then give them the right teaming experience, or the right wellness experience, or the right ability to talk to people and get your message passed on? Of course, technology has played a huge role in that, but it did require a conscious effort on organization to think about, okay, how do I ensure that managers or people managers are spending time with their people to be able to handhold them for whatever they need, and give them the right experiences. One of the other things that is being seen right now is the changes in labor laws and taxation laws, etc., which of course is not just in India but global phenomenon, because we really needed to think about, like, our entire office concept relies on the premise of zones or special economic zones that we had created for ourselves and organizations to take benefit from taxation. Um, and our entire office was built on the premise of Shops and Establishment Act. Now with offices being in everyone's home, literally, how does that work out from a financial perspective? How does that work out from a labor law perspective? How does that work out from a perspective of cybersecurity and threats that we all continue to see? How do you tax people and the businesses today when the revenue that you're generating is from people's homes? So all of that is yet to be unfolded in through several
ಹಿಂಗೆ ಮದ
interventions.
ಮದ ತಯಾರು ಎತ್ಕೊಂಡು
I think someone
ಹೌದಾ
has unmuted herself. Okay, thank you. How do you then see that changing is something that we will have to wait and watch for things to unfold. Um, Now, impact of lockdown on women, especially economic stress on families, increased pressure on women towards ensuring family well-being. Lockdown impacted women in terms of access to basic amenities, healthcare, especially pregnant and disabled women. This, of course, has I would say kind of relaxed right now because of the fact that we are all now able to move out of our homes. But according to a UN research, what they say is it has had a catastrophic impact on women, with domestic abuse up to 20% during the lockdown. So, in fact, I think pre-COVID-19 decisions really have no relevance in the post-COVID-19 world. And there is already a next normal that we are all part of, right? Some other important facts for all of us to really look into. 43% of highly qualified women with children are leaving careers or off-ramping for a period of time. 45% of women are unable to make comeback from maternity leave, and 54% look for flexibility as a huge benefit while taking up a new job. 30% are leaving full-time jobs for gig work or freelancing due to lack of flexibility and independence. And 35% of women are turning into being an entrepreneur and establishing their own business. I don't think anyone on the call would disagree with any of these realities because that's what is happening as we speak as well. And that has also put into a scenario of lot of interventions and initiatives within organizations to think about how do we still remain relevant. And Gig Now, for from an EY perspective, was a program that was designed to be able to make that as an attractive proposition as well for women who want to continue to be in careers. Um, how are careers evolving in the new age of career framework? I think it's all about personalizing careers these days, right? Uh, Typically in the past what we would see is how we would uh, how we would have an entry level functional leader entry level guy move up to a functional leader's role, or entry level person move up to a functional leader's role. But today we have an option where people start in their one vertical, move up in their career, take a step back, and then learn something new and move up further to take up the leadership roles. Um, or you could start your career, take a horizontal scaling role, learn something new, vertically move up, come back into the corporate function, and move up in your role. And I think it's all about how do we personalize career journeys for individuals? How do we how do we be open for variable paces of progression for individuals? How do we really give market alignment to the job titles that would resonate internally and externally, and give a consistent view of and a global view of the roles that we do, instead of just making it as a role within a particular city or a geography, right? And with that, if we were to really think about what is changing and driving all of this, is the industrial revolution. With what started off with mechanization, steam power, weaving loom, to industrialization 2.0, where we saw mass production, assembly line, electrical energy, to in 3.0, all about automation, computers, and electronics, to today, where in the Uberized world or COVID-19 world, it's all about cyber physical systems, Internet of Things, and networks. Now, it may not make sense as we just heard it. Now, let me give you a story here that makes it look a lot more meaningful for all of us. If you think about how careers for a lot of us on the call, and probably our parents, as they were working in their organizations, they would all have seen how their roles evolved and shifted from um, book and paper, or being on premise within an organization, or doing the work only for that particular function or a department, as they used to call, to computers coming and opening up various other opportunities for them, uh, and various other automations that made physical efforts being reduced to automation taking over the way the world was working. To today, if you think about the last 15-20 years, it's all about, especially with the broadband internets and 4G internets, and the fact that every villager has a smartphone now. uh, how are businesses evolving or careers evolving for people across a demography or a country like India is what we are talking about, and how everything that we do today, like even a post office in the remotest village today is connected with an internet. Even a village is connected with a high speed broadband connection. And how has that opened up ability for organizations like Amazon and Flipkart to go and do that last mile delivery? Was this possible 15 years ago? The answer was no, which is why there used to be a lot of migration from villages and towns to larger cities. Today, that's no longer required. Today, we can sit at homes wherever we are, and I think get the work done. One of the things that really emerged as a winner in the entire pandemic was we always had a concept of work from home, but we also realized the true potential of work from hometowns. Now, of course, it would have many other challenges and things to be worked out from a legality standpoint, which of course will be taken care of. But at the end of the day, you today can imagine giving jobs to people who are not in your office locations, merely by the potential that remote working has opened up. So that's the potential that we're talking about from an industrial revolution standpoint. Uh, how is workforce evolving? Now, here I would like to quote another personal story, and I think you will all be able to resonate with this. My mom was a Central Railway employee, and one of the things that really loved and enjoyed was our summer vacations or Dasara vacations, where we used to, at times, once in 2 years or once in a year, go to our hometowns. And I remember it required a lot of meticulous planning. Like tickets used to be, I mean, was required to be booked at least 3 months in advance. So I remember my dad, though my mom was a railway employee, she used to get passes for us to travel from wherever we are to wherever we want to go. The pass had to be shown at the ticket counter to be for them to issue a free ticket. So my dad used to wake up at 3:34 in the morning and go and stand in the queue at 5 a.m., book the ticket, and then we would plan for that entire journey. Uh, and from that, I remember the days where we had meter gauges in certain cities, in certain areas. From there on to it, I mean, most of the country now today is on a broad gauge line, and how the trains or the locomotives changed from being diesel driven to electric driven engines for the most of the cities and towns in India. I saw that change happening gradually because even when I started my career, I relocated to Hyderabad, and I used to travel home every 2 months, and I loved the train travel because it was just an overnight journey. Now, if you think about the railways of 1970s, what we saw was it was predominantly full-time employees that were employed, a bit of consultants. And when I say consultants, these were typically people who would manage your signaling and a bit of your tracks systems and all of that, or engineers who would be hired on demand to fix a breakdown of an engine, or cases where you had, I would say, derailments. You would typically hire consultants to take care of all the repair work that needed to be done and all of that, right? uh, Railways in 70s and 80s was predominantly focused on spikes in demand on two major occasions, or two or three major occasions. One was, of course, the summer vacations typically, and then holiday vacations for Diwali and Dasera and Pongal and all of that. So every time there was a requirement for additional trains, you would have holiday specials, and that's about it. Otherwise, railways typically discouraged requests for any new trains to be run. I know for a fact that we used to stay in Mumbai, and when we had to go to Kerala, which is where I belong, my hometowns in Palakkad, we had only one train. And it used to go through Maharashtra, then Andhra, and then Karnataka, and then again Andhra, and then reach Tamil Nadu, and then hit Kerala. And it was crazy 36 to 40 hours of journey. And no matter after multiple requests, the government will not budge and probably uh, probably approve one train, which even after approval would take 2 or 3 years for it to actually get commissioned. But a lot of that changed in 80s and mid 80s because a lot of migration was happening during that time. A lot of people left their hometowns from northeast and north and south and west to come to larger metros like Delhi, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Mumbai, and Chennai. And that required a lot of planning and additional coach manufacturing. So integral coach factory went through massive change during those 20-25 years. And I think there was also a shift from the way we would manufacture coaches to modern designs, modern techniques. And then came a revolution where there was an ask, a long pending ask from people in India for developing a corridor where people we could reduce the travel time. So one of the largest coastal line networks was Konkan Railway, and that was not possible without or with just employees of railways, because they lacked the technical expertise to be able to work through that entire terrain of ghats and mountains and rivers and ocean land and ocean beds, and of course they did not have the manpower to be able to do that as well, which is where the government decided to do a public-private partnership, brought in a lot of engineers, technical experts to build that entire model. And then when finally the execution happened, we saw full timers. Of course, the folks who were running the railways were working as full timers. You had access to part timers because people would come and do the projects for you and get it done. So digging of tunnels, building bridges. The longest bridges in the Asian railway continent is in the Konkan Railway space, and had access to best in class contractors who would come and give you equipments, techniques, technical know-hows, and of course freelancers. So automation, computers, electronics, and this was a hybrid model of working. uh, think about last 20 years or 15 years. Railways was going through massive expansion, and it was no longer going to be possible for them to just keep hiring people, which is where IRCTC was born. And the railways decided that if they had to fulfill the demand, they have to outsource the work to an external agency. So IRCTC, which was originally only catering to food being served in the railway coaches, now also took on various other activities that supported the entire business. And of course, cloudification of work started there. So today you can sit wherever you are, wherever you are literally, and book the ticket for a location A to location B at a click of a button. You don't need to go to a ticket counter to book a ticket, unless of course you're traveling from a town in a location to a town B in the same state, but and which doesn't require a lot of planning. So all of that was possible through cloudification of work. So you technically do not require people to be placed to do this work. You just need to connect the servers together, and the work gets done. You now also have access to remote workers, along with to support your full timers, and of course gig workers as well. All of what we see in IRCTC today is all about sharing. None of them own anything except they own their own people, but it's not about a demand-based model. It's a sharing model that we are all part of. And the workforce is absolutely flexible and driven heavily by digital transformation, right? Think about the transformation in aviation from Air India to Air Deccan to Jet Airways to Indigo to what we have today. All fits the same bill, and that's how the workforce is transformed for all of us to believe that this is the way the world is moving and we are all part of it. We know it or not, I think we are all part of it already. Um, so the next question for all of us is, when what if becomes what now, will you have an answer, right? Gig economy, we've all heard this, sorry. But what is it, and what are some of the key drivers of this? There is a projection that it will grow up to 455 billion over next 3 years. We already have close to about 6.1 million people on as part of the ecosystem in India already. 48% of millennials use gig platforms to find work, right? And close to 37% of full-time freelancers and independent gig workers are relatively young, aged between 21 to 38. Doesn't mean that someone who's 65 is not going to be able to find work through gig economy. They absolutely can. It's all about fine tuning the value proposition and what you can do to be able to find that work. And with that, let's see what gig economy is all about. Now think about again the example of Konkan Railways that I shared, but think about your own personal travel when you used to do in the past. maybe 10 years ago, you would get down from a train or get down at the airport, come out, walk out, and you'll see a lot of people standing on in auto stands, taxi stands, and waiting for you to just pick one and take the ride back home. Or think about the city hubs where you would see a lot of white collar, blue collar jobs, job workers waiting for them to get their work for the day allocated by their so-called leader. And auto unions drove the auto rickshaws, drivers as such. Taxi unions did the same, and there was always a middleman that made money in this. With digitization and with Uberization, what has happened is we now have access to the same quality of talent through a platform. While the platform takes a small share of orchestrating that work for you, uh, you have availability information. You have the ability to book your ride in next 5 minutes for a ride in next 5 minutes, or you can plan your haircut and sit at home and get your haircut done, or call your beautician at home and get the entire. I mean, you don't need to go to a beauty parlor today. I think that's what we realized through COVID as well, and all of that is happening through phenomenal applications that are getting developed and are part of the digital ecosystem. Think about all of that from a perspective where organizations now have access to freelancers as well. Platforms like Upwork or Topcoder or Fiverr and Gig Now, as an example, we are able to attract the talent on our platforms and have direct engagements with them instead of going through a third party middleman. Where I think in this there is a lot of ownership and accountability that lies on both the sides, and that makes a very attractive proposition for gig workers as well as organizations as well, and which is what we are seeing happening as part of the digital revolution, right? So that being said, what's digital workforce, right? Freelancing is growing as an industry. Freelancers are expected to be about 50% of India's workforce by 2021. We are the largest. I mean, we are largest freelancers manufacturer, I would say, with over 10 million people already as part of this ecosystem. And you would not believe this, but 40% of Indian freelancers surveyed by PayPal last year said that their businesses have grown phenomenally in the last 1 year. Now, this may be very contrarian to the realities that we may be seeing. But what I meant to say is, while there may be a lot of reports about unemployment, uh, gig employment requires a very different mindset. And there is a huge shift that is required within each one of us to be able to think about gig as an entrepreneurial venture versus as an employment opportunity, and which is what is getting grossly ignored whenever there are dialogue or debates about India's employment situation. The fact is, the rise of startup ecosystem, the rise of gig economy is something that we all need to pay attention to. And we will go to any platforms today, talk to any platform company CEOs. They'll say largest portion of our talent pool sits in India, and that's what the reality is. um, Now, having said that, who is a gigapreneur? And I'll say gigapreneur are gig workers who are entrepreneurs. Um, he or she is an individual who's self-employed for short term. They seek gigs and are not committed to a single employer or a contractor for a long-term duration. The individuals may engage with more than one company at a time, and of course, work 24 by 7. They don't really have a 9 to 5 job philosophy, or they don't have a limit of 40 to 45 hours of work. They at times can work for 72 hours and take vacation. I think the entire concept evolved when people said we don't have work life balance. And there's and someone asked this question: how would you feel if you were to work for 8 months and take 4 months vacation? And that's the answer that you have if you are a gigapreneur, if I can say that. uh, People love it. And why? It's because you have complete control on workload. You develop new skills at every new gig opportunity that you're part of. You define your own quality standards, and you're your own boss. You don't need someone to be really overseeing you and your work. Of course, clients do that, but at the end of the day, for your venture, for the work that you do, you're going to be responsible for yourself. It's all about empowerment as well. You're part of an own online labor market. You have access to all the current market trends, and you're part of a growing shared economy. Financial stability, you get to define your financial goals and work towards it. And at the end of the day, define set of competitive rates and adopt financial tools and be smarter about your spends. There are a lot of tools that have come in the last 12 to 18 months, which really support startup ecosystem and really not have to hire a consultant to be able to get this done. Now, there are tools and platforms even to manage your accounts or your bills or your invoices or the way you um, even get your website designed or the way you even have your marketing and communications taken care of, and all at a very economical price point. And of course, the icing on the cake is all about work life balance. You can set your own work schedule, you can set your own workspace. You don't need to be confined to a particular geography anymore. Sitting in India, you can now work for clients across the world, and clear lines that define work and home time. And I think that's all the power of gig working, which is what this is making a lot more popular in times like these. So could you prepare for jobs that don't exist by learning skills that do? Gig work requires, as I said, slightly different mindset. And if you're thinking about gig work from an employee's point of view, it may slightly look a challenging one because you may. And one of the first questions and popular questions that we keep getting asked is, oh, but I'm gonna get this opportunity only for 3 months with EY. What happens to the other 9 months? While which is where the challenge is, with a lot of people are not able to move up the ladder to think about it as an entrepreneur, and then not able to find opportunities beyond the 3 months with EY themselves. And I think that requires access to some bit of um, new age skills, I would say. What are those? Innovation and creativity, right? I think, can we think about problems or opportunity statements creatively and find better solutions to it? Can we manage our time well? Gig requires you to shuffle or dabble between two or three clients. Can we do that well? Negotiation skills. Can we negotiate our timelines, our pricing, our contractual scope with our clients well? Not like an employment offer where you just sign in whatever terms and conditions are offered by the employer. Can you network well? And we'll talk a bit more about network in the next few slides. How is your business acumen? Can you manage this as a business? Do you know what a P&L is? Can you think about your entity as a startup and work through the entire year as an entrepreneur, and file returns like an entrepreneur? Communication skills. Can you be proactive than being reactive? How can you brand yourself and create yourself as a personal brand, strong personal brand? And organizational skills. Now, these are all skills required for anyone, for that matter, in the current, or I would say the next normal or the new normal, as we all speak about. It's just about how you can be the better you in the way the world works today. um, so how can what you learn transform to who you become? I think it's an extremely important and a powerful question. We all learn a lot, but can we transform into who we want to become? Importance of being relevant. Um, I think VUCA world, as we all have heard, requires us to really be prepared with uh, a plan B, C, D, E, whatever you may want to call, for this and any other future disruptions that may come, because it's going to come, we like it or not. It was COVID this time around. It could be something else in the near future. So traditional ways of working, workplace, work has already transformed and will continue to be transformed. Remote working, virtual working, gig working, contract jobs, freelance jobs are indeed the next normal. Caring, listening, empathy, no matter what you do, are extremely important, because in the virtual world, if you don't do this, it's going to put an enormous amount of pressure in things not working well for you. So can we do that effectively and develop a needs mindset? Can we think about, we all always have been running behind what we want. Can we think about what we need? It helps immensely in running your business well. It helps immensely in managing your budgets well. And I think that's what is needed in times like these. um, and how do we then transition into a successful gig worker by getting into this mindset? Now, a classic question people would ask is, okay, after having heard whatever I just said, how is this applicable to me? Okay, you may not be a gig worker today, you may not be wanting to be working on gigs today, but at some point of time, we all hit a stage where we ask ourselves this question: what next? What do I need to do? And what if I want to start something on my own? Or how do I start it? I don't know where to start. Um, uh, and then go back to the old ways of doing job searches. In the last, I would say, 6 to 8 months, especially post the COVID started really impacting jobs, I would have spoken to several professionals who were in their mid 40s, early 40s, and late 50s, or sorry, late 40s, really struggling to imagine their careers. I mean, one, they left their jobs, or they probably were asked to leave, or they wanted something new for themselves and they have an offer but are unable to choose. The bigger question is, are we ready to take this on? And or how do we take this on, rather? And the challenge that everyone had at that point of time was, we are applying to jobs but we are not getting any calls at all. uh, can how do we really uh, uh, find the right people who could give us attention to the profiles that we hold, right? So, and a lot of people unfortunately remained doing nothing, because they were just not able to come out of that zone of, okay, why am I not getting jobs at all? So in the VUCA world that we are all part of, doing nothing is not an option. And let's not really waste our time in looking at one size fits all solutions. Uh, Now we know for a fact that we all have been working in corporate jobs, employers, but we also know the fact that a lot of jobs are getting automated. People are looking for digital interventions. People really need to think about um, careers in a very different mindset today, because every role today is shifted from, I don't need number of years of experience. I would need, how, what is the proficiency on the skill that I need you to have for performing this role well. So understand best principles and not best practices. Don't do something just because others are telling or others are doing this. Have a lifelong learner mindset. Learn, unlearn, relearn. What got you here won't get you there. Remember that always. Push your own personal boundaries. Very important. Take the first step. Create disruption. Don't wait for it, and continue to connect and build your network, as well as we move along. So, in short, the time is now. So start now. Develop a perpetual learner mindset. Read. I mean, I would say the amount of reading that one has to do to be able to be aware of what exists. I mean, I'm not telling read news. No, I mean, the answer is, there are far more better tools and technologies and articles that are written about what's happening in the world that will help you understand the impact of whatever is happening on your own businesses as well. We all have phenomenal stories of what happened last 12 months. Each story is unique. I have my own personal story of how my last 12 months have been, and I've been narrating a few on my LinkedIn profile on a daily basis, or a weekly ones basis as well. Find the storyteller and be more open about sharing that with people. Practice listening skills, of course, and then finally ask questions. What are the kind of questions you need to ask? What's my true calling? And I think we often don't ask these questions to ourselves. We're always busy in the grind of work. But unless and until our purpose doesn't align with what we do, We will never be happy with whatever we are doing. um, and then if you're not able to hire a coach, find who you can talk to about this and get more insights about all of what you need to figure out about your purpose. Who should you connect with to learn more about the industry that you're part of? Do you have the right skills to do your job? Skills revolution is unfolding in a phenomenal way at a pace that we cannot imagine. There is an interesting article I'll recommend all of you to read is on intentional learning by McKinsey. It's also there on World Economic Forum. Please do read that. You will understand the impact of skills on jobs and whether what you're doing today would that even be relevant in the next 5 years or next 10 years. Um, of course, once you know that, ask yourself, do you need skill interventions? Do you need to upgrade your skills? Do you need to do some new certifications to be able to do that? There is a stat which says 65% of entrepreneurs and gig workers upskill themselves with 2 or 3 skills every year. As employees within an organization, we don't do that. And which is why when an unfortunate event of a layoff happens, a lot of people can't really figure out what just happened. It's because then they're trying to dig a well when they're thirsty, which is not going to help. So be proactive about that piece for sure. What companies do you want to do research? Look at your current company and look at other organizations who are in this similar space and do research about what your competitors are doing, what others do so well that you should also learn from them. What can you do differently, and what are your options? If you really spend time on asking yourselves these questions on a day in day out basis, it will really give you an outside in view about what you need to do to be able to be relevant. Now the question is, can you transition from a full-time job or a full-timer to gig workforce or gig worker? Absolutely. Understand what's involved in a gig. There are tons of articles written on this topic. Feel free to really look into that. Ensure you manage your time, work, and place of work, etc. Invest in technology, very important. People of course work from home, sitting in wherever corner, and just because the organization gave the laptop, use the same laptops. Not really, I mean, even if the webcam is broken, they would not buy a new one for themselves. Or if the headset is broken, would not really, I mean, imagine the same call if it was with a very horrible audio, it would not really help, right? So invest in that. And all of the other aspects that you just read here about what you need to do to be a successful gig worker. None of these come naturally to us, unfortunately, because we are used to doing things in a way where our organization takes care of it for us. The moment you are a gig worker, you're on your own, and you need to have this mindset to be able to take care of yourself. Very importantly, so the networking piece, I'll just share about that. But before that, I have a very important question for all of you, and this will really be uh, an eye opener for all of us. We are in a virtual world. We can't really see each other as much as we were in the past. We can't really meet each other as frequently as we used to do in the past. Um, so it's all about perceptions that get formed based on the hearsay. And there is a phenomenal concept called Chinese whisper, any which ways, where you say something and something else gets interpreted. And then by the time someone else hears it, it's totally different. Uh, and and again, you're not seen. So how will your talents be more visible when you may not be? An extremely important and a powerful question for all of us to really think about, um, which is where I would bring in the element of networking. And how is it important? We always have this question in our minds that, oh, I mean, networking is not for me, or I don't have time. I'm so busy doing what I do. I don't have time for this. Or I will then do networking because I really want something from this person. Um, but remember, networking is less like hunting and more like gardening, right? Hunting is transactional. Anything that is transactional is not going to help. In the last 12 months, I've received at least about 2,000 to 3,000 connections on LinkedIn. just they will add on to my network. The second thing that they would do is, Gopal, I'm looking for a job, can you help? Would that be the right thing? I would say the approach is inappropriate. um, Gardening, on the other hand, is cyclical, ongoing. You're weeding, you're planting, you're watering, and you're nurturing. And that's what is the nature of networking as well. Now, can we really spend quality time in offering our support, help in people getting the best in from us before we even ask help? Is the question that we need to really ask ourselves. So, networking redefined. So, create a fabric of personal contacts to support feedback, to provide support, feedback, insight, and resources. The goal is to give support first and not ask. Be part of a supportive system, sharing first and contributing to ideas and groups having common interests. Build a plan to have access to diverse skill sets and influence and power, right? And there is a reason why networking has a word work in it, and which is why it doesn't come naturally, and it has to be a thing that we need to force people to do, unfortunately. um, what are the next steps that you can think about? Spend time in continuing to assess your current network. Leverage the power of virtual networking. Phenomenal tools like Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We'll talk a bit on LinkedIn as well. Schedule and prioritize time for networking. There is no quick path to authentic and meaningful relationships. And think about this now. And you all may want to do this yourselves as well. If someone were to Google you today, what comes? Any idea? The first thing. Have you ever Googled yourself? People on
Yes.
chat? Yes, no, maybe. Yes, LinkedIn
No.
profile. No, okay. No. Please do Google LinkedIn profile. Yeah, perfect. The answer is yes, LinkedIn profile. 9 out of 10 times, unless you're a celebrity, where you're on IMDb or you're on YouTube with at least 100 or 200 videos, um, um, you would it would be the LinkedIn profile that comes first. And it is therefore important for your LinkedIn profile to have an compelling professional first impression online. Um, so, power of LinkedIn, right? 675 million professionals and organizations only with a sole intention to build awareness, visibility, and credibility. There are two new LinkedIn members per second. 30 million companies are connected on LinkedIn. A LinkedIn ad can reach 12% of world's population. And it has more than 260 million active users, monthly active users, over 600 million users, but only 3 million users share content weekly. 57% users are male, 42 are female. 20 million jobs get posted on LinkedIn. 57% of traffic comes from mobile. So it's a myth that I need to have a laptop to be able to access LinkedIn. The answer is no. LinkedIn is used sparingly by most visitors. So you only have a few minutes to make an impact. Users only spend about 17 minutes per month on LinkedIn, right? So we heard this piece of the largest professional network. So I'm not gonna dwell deeper into it. Even despite this, many professionals just have a basic profile. They don't know what to do on LinkedIn and are not even leveraging it to become ambassadors or influencers. So, few things: keep a profile active, right? Most importantly, uh, share content, provide your thoughts, share your stories, build your network, engage with your connections, and be effective every day. Because at the end of the day, this is the best chance for you to really look at what all you can do through LinkedIn. And why, you would ask. This personal brand, as strong as it can be, helps a lot of people uh, really get the best opportunities as employees or candidates, and even as gig workers. If you're a gig worker, if you plan to become a gig worker soon, um, make sure that you have a very strong LinkedIn profile, because at the end of the day, that takes care of half of the business that you need to build for yourself, right? 58% of social screenings, I mean, people looking to hire you or engage with you, 58% of them look at social profiles before they talk to you. 50% want to ensure that the candidate has a strong online persona. 34% want to see what other people are posting about you, and 24% check social media to search for reasons not to engage with you or not to hire you, right? And now this has replaced, in reality, the profile that we really think about sending it to others. When people say, I'm searching for opportunities, my first question to them is, how? And they'll say, I've been applying, sending my CVs. Now, in this world where a recruiter on an average is able to spend only less than 3 seconds to review your profile, unless and until you have a strong profile or a CV or or LinkedIn profile, you're not going to get the attention at all, right? Now, now, a small story about this. I think it was about in April, May, and training and development or learning and development industry hit a massive roadblock with COVID, because the entire industry was on the premise of people uh, taking classroom sessions. Now, this lady, young girl, maybe in her mid 20s, sent a LinkedIn invite to me and said, "Hello, Gopal," and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, hi, responded politely, courteously, and all of that. Uh, I think a week later, she sent me a quick 30-second audio and video, like video clip, where she said, Gopal, this is who I am. This is what I do. I don't mean this to be my a pitch, but if there is anything that I can do for you and be part of uh, any things that you need for building your L&D organization better, I'm more than happy to do that. Now, that was a quick 30-second elevator pitch, which didn't seem like an elevator pitch, but was an elevator pitch to grab the attention. Now, can we think about doing things like these through platforms like these? And that's the power that we have today through digital media and digital transformation. And this is the only way that we can really coach ourselves and become better in what we do through building our personal brands. Now, the last question that I have is, could we build a better working world with the questions that you ask today? So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. More than happy to take any through the chat, or even you can unmute yourself and ask. You can share your perspectives on what you just heard as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Gopal. That was chock full of very interesting insights and very relevant information for all of us. Would love to open it up for questions. I'm sure you're curious to know more about some of the things Gopal has shared. So please feel free to raise your hand, and we'll call on you to unmute, or you can also mention your question in the chat.
Gopal, this is Abhirami. Good morning.
Hi.
So I have one question. You referred about 30-second elevator talk about ourselves. You mentioned about the video. So I would like to get more information on that, saying that 30 seconds, how we can give our impactful storytelling. Like only we have to quote our achievements, or we can also share our developmental area, which we are really looking out for, and what we can really bring it to the table. So can you just give a bit of, more explanation on that 30 minutes elevated talk?
So I'm going to ask you 2 or 3 or 4 questions maybe, and I think all of you can or are encouraged to write this down and really um, find answers to this. Not, I mean, as simple as English it may sound, it's going to be a tough one for you to get answers to. The first question is who you are, like basically, who am I? That's a question that I want to ask myself. And this is not profession alone. It's not like I'm an HR professional or I'm a finance professional, but a lot more deeper. So who you are, right? What do you do is the second question that I would have, because it's not merely about the day-to-day roles and responsibilities that I would talk about. It's more about what is my fabric as an individual, right? I can say that I'm an HR professional, or I can also say that I'm here to impact 50,000 people this year, right? That's what I do. Um, so what do you do is the second question. The third question is, why do you do what you do, right? What drives you? What brought you here? What is going to get you? Um, and if what basically, what do you not like, but you would want to not focus on that and focus on what you like instead, about what you do, right? And the last one is, whatever you do for whoever, uh, do people value that? So a lot of times we say, yeah, I am an HR professional, but at the end of the day, do candidates value what we do? Do employees value what you do? How are you impacting their lives at the end of the day? Is that something that is gonna change? And if you have answers to these questions, Abhirami, the question that you asked me, about what should that 30-second look like, you will be able to form a 30-second elevator pitch through this, because unless and until you can't really um, figure out these true inner aspects about who you are as an individual and what drives you, it may not seem authentic. It will just be a transactional elevator pitch, more about um, what is the potential, or what are our achievements. Tell it like a story, and it will have a larger impact.
Great. Many thanks. Clear.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Go ahead, Shweta.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Bhavna. Thank you so much, Gopal. It was a very, very informative session. I have one question with regard to the networking. Recently we did a compassion project. We had to do a compassion project where when my compassion project was posted, a lot of people connected with me. And as you rightly pointed out, a lot of connections then move to asking for a job opportunity. So how do we kind of, uh, uh, make a connection where it makes sense for us, where both of us can leverage, and where I can probably decline. I was a little bit lost because there was suddenly a gush of invites that I received. So how do I leverage this situation where I can convert this to networking?
So there is a technical aspect to it which I'm not going to cover today, because there is a separate LinkedIn workshop that we can do. But the more philosophical aspect to that is, um, hear them out. A lot of people today are um, clueless about what they need to do, and they are in their desperation about reaching out to people to gain attention, find the right opportunities for themselves. If there is anything that we can do to give them the guidance about um, uh, ways to find jobs, um, it helps. So I found this as a challenge myself as well, when I started. I would have done almost about 60 odd sessions like these in the last 12 months. And every session, most of it was with an academic institution. And whenever I did that, I used to get 100 odd connections with the first question, can you give me internships? And what I then realized was, okay, I can't respond to all, but I can probably create a small write up about few 3-4 tips that I want to share with them. I created that template, whenever someone reached out to me, I would share that template along with any of my YouTube video talks that helps them. I would say blog. If you can blog about what you can do, a least that you can do is to be able to give people 3 or 4 or 5 tips. I think Bhavna does a phenomenal job of blogging every Monday. I think sharing inspirational stories. A lot of people gain a lot through such interventions. And if that is something in whatever way, you can blog, you can do YouTube, you can do short stories, or merely simply putting an inspirational quote on your LinkedIn profile, and direct people, whoever ask any such questions, to these assets that you might have created for yourself. That's the easiest way to respond to such asks. And then it's up to you. You don't need to really put your connect as an option on LinkedIn. There are ways for you to convert that into follow. So the first action that anyone can take on your LinkedIn profile is to follow you, and then they, if you still they want to connect with you, they can connect with you. I think you just need to turn on that follow button. Uh, that will at least reduce the number of connection requests and requests for emails, and then you can then of course take it through all the other things that I just said.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The next thing I'm going to do is follow you on LinkedIn.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi. Good afternoon, Gopal. I'm Suhasini. I work as a HR in a leading audit firm. And thank you for the insights. I just followed you on LinkedIn as well about a minute ago. So, and I noticed that you've converted the connect to the follow option.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
yeah, thank you so much. And firstly, thank you for the wonderful session. I think it's really insightful. I've made a lot of notes as I was listening to you.
Sure.
I have one question, especially in this world of digital transformation and, as gig workers, where we have the luxury of working from the comfort of our homes, and especially with regard to the current scenario outside. As a HR professional, how or what are the few important steps that I need to probably keep in mind, especially when we as HRs tend to, or tend to call ourselves as the custodians of policies to various aspects. So is there some key elements that a HR professional needs to keep in mind, or something that we need to transform ourselves?
So, Asni, I spoke at NHRD in June last year. I'll share my YouTube link. It has got a lot of in-depth views on focus areas for HR professionals. Talks about basically the entire where we are and what we need to do. But if I were to really take a 30-second view on this, I think we often, because of the I would say barrage of emails and requests and whatever we keep getting as asks from us, stop being empathetic. If we can start following a bit more empathy and putting that into practice for a lot of these people who basically have no clue, and there are no clue because of one, ignorance, and two, because no one told them what they need to do and how they need to do. And then of course there is the third element of over information across all the platforms and media. So if we can just give them a bit of empathetic hearing, so listening as well as the other aspect, and then of course give them I mean, this is one thing that we keep doing this, and I'm sure you're part of Big Four audit firm. So are we. One of the things that we often preach and practice, but at times need to be reminded of, is treat them as your clients. The moment we treat them as our clients, whoever they are, whatever they do, we will know that we have to give them that due respect, listening to guide them in the right direction. So if we can follow these basic aspects, I think it should be good. But again, more detailed, I've shared that in my NHRD talk. I will share that with you.
Thank you so much, Gopal. Thank you. Really appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you, Suhasini. Vishali, Bayanisha,
Yeah.
you can go next.
Yeah. Hi, Gopal. Thanks for a very relevant session and supporting it with a lot of data, which is otherwise not available. I have two questions actually, but rolled into one.
Sure.
So when you have 15, 20 years of experience, you have a set, of multiple skills. So for a gig worker, is it required to focus only on one skill as a forte, or be open to doing many more skills and many more gigs, which may not be exactly related? So what serves good in the long run, focusing on one forte or focusing on multiple skills? And how do you price yourself?
Okay, that's uh, the focus on the first few years of being a gig worker should be a generalist. Okay.
Okay.
The reason for that is you don't know what you don't know, right?
Mhm.
So picking up everything that comes your way is the right way to one, learn a lot of things, learn fast, fail as
Mhm.
well, have the appetite to fail, and then learn through failures and move up the ladder. I
Okay.
would say develop a niche in the year 2, year 3 of your gig working, because um, if you start suddenly with one skill as your niche, you may restrict yourself from many other opportunities. You need to have a bit of diversity in your portfolio as well. Now, the biggest question that I would have for you is what is it that you want to do, right? Because everything that you decide is based on the choice that you want to make. Now,
Mhm.
do you want to be in one skill, you want to be in 10 skills, you want to be in 50 skills or 100 skills? Because whatever you decide will have a repercussion, or when I say repercussion, more of it as you will have to work towards those 10 skills or 15 skills or 20 skills that you're working towards, and work towards being relevant in each of those skills as well, for you to be able to offer the value to the client.
Mhm.
Now, if you can't really focus on each of these skills and do justice, then it will lead into a situation where you're not able to build enough credibility, right?
Mhm.
As much as possible, if you want to dabble between 2 or 3 gigs, keep unique identities in each of these. And
Okay.
so, for example, I can be an author tomorrow. That's a different target audience, right? I'm a speaker here. It's a different target audience, right? I may share a few content here and there, but again, not all of you who are on call today would go and read my book, right?
Mhm.
Versus what I do with EY, that's a different target audience, right? So you need to define your strategy with your target audience or the group that you're focusing on, which is extremely important for you. So you need to sit down and really ask yourself question as to what all areas are you want to be going
Mhm.
to be into, and then define a strategy on what niche that you want to develop, what skills you need to focus on, how do you develop those skills if you don't have that, and then when are you good to go live.
Okay.
So run this as a project is what my humble opinion be.
And how do you price yourself?
Pricing is a factor of the value you provide, right? It's not like compensation that we offer to people in jobs. Pricing is so for example, if you go to just Fiverr, I don't know if you have anyone of you have used Fiverr. I would encourage you to go to fiverr.com. If you want to write a book, and if you want to design a cover page for your book, it costs you about anywhere from 350 rupees to 15,000 rupees, right?
Mhm.
You have range of it, right? Same like Uber. Like you may have an Uber X, Uber XL, Uber whatever, 3 or 4 categories of it. Now the categories are defined by the proficiency you have in that work that you do. So you may be really good at what you're doing, you can charge a particular price point, which means I would never have an opportunity for people to do a rework. I mean, one conversation and that's about it. I know what I need to do. A classic example, an analogy that I can draw is we do tax returns for our clients. It could go up to 100,000 rupees or 50,000 rupees for a tax return, versus someone who could do at 250 rupees as well. Like there are a lot of these apps who would have sent push notifications to you last month before the tax filing season, where file your return at 250 rupees. and we could charge the same a lot more higher. It is the degree of complexity that exists for an organization like EY to sit and look into every transaction, which is why we charge 50,000. And they would just take your basic information from Form 16 and file your returns. They will not be responsible for accuracy of your tax return. If there is a tax audit that comes tomorrow, you're on your own. They will not help you with that. With EY and for others, we help you with that as well. So, I mean, draw these analogies, and then probably you will know how to price your projects as well.
Okay, thanks a ton.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Vishali. Mishri, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. Am I audible, Bhavna?
Yes, we can hear.
Yes.
Yeah, hi Gopal. Thank you so much for this insightful information. I would like to know about some of the gig platforms in India and worldwide wherein employers can post the gigs and workers can look for it.
There are tons of it. I mean, Upwork is there, Fiverr is there, 99 Designs. It's skill driven. So if you have a specific skill, you will be able to find platforms that supports your skill as well. The best platform to search for such platform is Google.
Yeah.
So yeah, Fiverr, 99 Test Designs, Upwork, Gig Now. You have freelancer.com, guru.com. I mean, there are tons of it. Every organization will soon start having platforms.
Great. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Mishri. Suchi, if you're still here and would like to ask your question, go ahead.
Thank you, Bhavna. And thanks, Gopal, for the valuable session. There were lots of insights, and I am myself one of the HR professional who is into career transition right now. So speaking through the vulnerabilities which I am facing currently is I transition from one country to another one. And my question lies into, I'm already contributing towards certain of the freelancing projects, but how to transition self once you have entered into freelancing from that journey to full-time, because the challenge which comes is probably the benefits are never been covered in freelancing work, and full-time is lucrative option.
Yeah, you may want to say that you may find full-time lucrative only for the next few years. After that, it's going to be the gig that will be lucrative. It's as simple as this, right? Think about this as a Kirana store versus an Amazon, right? A Kirana store, a guy who runs a Kirana store in a completely offline model will only keep serving one set of customers who are within 2 to 3 kilometers of the range of where he has his shop. Now, unless he thinks about delivering to home, unless he or she thinks about having an app where he can then serve to customers beyond 2 to 3 kilometers radius as well. Unless he is able to offer diversified products, he's not going to be able to find much of luck. So his earning potential will be restrictive. As full-timers, we are in a restrictive mode of being covered for our expenses, right? I mean, we always work for that paycheck, for that matter. But if you're a freelancer, nothing stops you. You can do many things at one go, and you can choose to do one thing this month, next thing the other month. But of course, to develop that confidence, it takes time, and I think you need to have a lot of mentoring connects with the right people to be able to understand what's the best place for you to continue growing. Now, having said that, going back from freelancing to full time is very easy. I mean, you don't need to do anything, just apply for jobs. If you're lucky to get a job, nothing like it. But don't quit being a freelancer even after you get a full-time job, because one thing that, I mean, all disruptions have taught us is we're only as good as our outcome on the prior project. and every organization is becoming like that. If you're doing well in that particular project, you're good. You'll continue to get your raise. You continue to get your salary, bonuses, and all of that. Um, if you didn't perform well, then I think there are other avenues for you to explore. Now, all of that is already happening, and that's what gig working is all about. So, gig working, freelancing is more gonna keep you pushed towards doing better day in day out. So mindsets are very different. It's tough for someone to transition from FTE to gig because the same question that you asked, it doesn't cover for my insurance. Well, why should someone? You should cover for yourself. Budget for it, get that done, put it in place, bake that into your next project as an expenditure, and claim it. So I think that's what my recommendation to you would be. But of course, there is a lot more you can do. The question is, are you going to be able to find opportunities?
Yes, and Gopal, one more question. Thank you for that answer. Another one is like on LinkedIn, if I'm mentioning all the work profiles with a slash, is that better option, or with years of experience highlighting yourself as a specialist into one particular field is the better option?
The question is again back. I think this is what I asked, shared with Vaishali as well. The question is, what is it that you want to do? What is it that you want to position yourself as? Do you want to position yourself as a specialist? Do you want to position yourself as a generalist? And the reason that you should ask you that yourself that question is, what are the kind of opportunities you're looking for, right? If if you're gonna, this is like, are you into a shampoo selling business, or are you into a shoe polish business? And each of them have a different customer orientation, customer market. Understand your customer first. Understand who you want to sell your product to. Consider yourself as a product for a moment. All of us on the call need to do that every day. If we were a product, how would we like to be sold? And who should be the buyer, right? Should that be a buyer in India? Should that be a buyer in the US? Should that be a buyer in the Netherlands? And what are the qualities and skills that buyer in the US looks at, and what price would he be willing to pay me? I think do that analysis first, based on what your target audience is, who you're going to sell your product yourself as a product to, and then you will find the answer to this question that you asked much easily. Take an outside in view, not an inside out view, basically.
Okay, thank you. And last one, Gopal,
Sure.
that are, yes, basically, should a person looking for the freelancing opportunities be tagging as open to work on the LinkedIn, or that actually depreciates your value, showing you as one of the active seeker?
I don't think I have an answer for that, unfortunately. It's purely gonna be, it's individual recruiters' perspective, and I can't really speak for others on that. Sorry about that.
No worries. Thank you very much, Gopal.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Suchi. Anmol, I know you had raised your hand earlier. Would you like to ask?
Yeah, thank you, Bhavna. Hi, Gopal. Thank you for today's session. It was really great. I have two questions. The first one is, so you said that close to 50% of the population currently is in the gig business, and the number is only going to get higher going forward. And I'm from the healthcare industry. I am a doctor, and subsequently, I'm just thinking about what it will be like for hospitals or smaller clinics and places like that. How are we going to have skill trained people who are going to stay and work with us? Like, what does it mean for institutions? How do we get people to work with us, and if we want them to stick with us, maybe for a longer duration than just as for, because we don't have projects, right? Like, we have patient care on an everyday basis. So I wanted to know if you have thought about that, and if there is any thing that you want to, like, could share on that front. And the second question that I had is about networking. And again, in the healthcare field, I've noticed that a lot of experienced professionals are not on LinkedIn. And if I want to stay in touch with different professors and researchers across the globe, the only way that I can do that right now is by emails, right? And like that feels like a formal way to connect with people and be respectful. And I was just wondering, are there any tips on how I can continue to nurture these networks over months and years without LinkedIn in the picture?
Have you heard of Practo? I'm sure you have.
I actually haven't. I'm sorry.
Okay, so go to Google and or Android or iOS and download Practo as an app. Practo.
Okay.
This has been a paradise for people who needed medical attention in the last 12 months, where they couldn't go to clinics. A lot of doctors have registered themselves for offering Practo based consulting services, because now teleconsulting is legal in India as well, because that's what people did. So now the bigger question that you asked me was, how can I incentivize people to come and work for me or work for us?
Yeah.
Now that requires another session, to be honest. But I think I would just give you an analogy of this, right? Think of how we have started consuming things these days, right? Do we buy cars? In the last 12 months, that behavior has slightly shaken because of the fact that we needed a bit more cleaner cars, etc. But if you would have asked me in December 2019, Gopal, do you want to buy a car or go through quick rides and Ubers? I would have picked quick ride and Uber, because the cost of acquisition is insane, to be honest, right? So renting is easier than owning stuff, which is why Airbnb is popular, which is why people staying on rent is at least about 60 to 70% of population than people buying houses. And the way we buy today, we don't go to shops, we buy it through Big Basket and Amazons of the world, because we want everything at a click of a button on fingertips, right? So our consumption patterns have shifted drastically with the rise of digitization and the fact that it's a capitalist economy, where I think the fact that, I mean, another example that I give is, in my entire 22 years of me staying with my parents in Mumbai, we just had bought two fridges, and that too, one we replaced the 165 liters Godrej fridge to LG because we wanted a double door. That's about it. But in the last 13 years of me staying alone, I would have bought 5 fridges already, because the products don't last. Something goes wrong, and then you don't have that particular component, and then you have to upgrade to something better. And the technology is getting enhanced so much that the cooling is better. You can make ice in 15 minutes and all of that, which is not possible in your old Godrej 165 liter fridge, right? So if you think about that as a pattern shift in the way we do things, don't think about acquiring people. You need to think about consuming their services, right? Your talent attraction strategy for an organization should be, where should I look for who can come and do this work for me? And medical industry, for that matter, is experts in that. I mean, I can see that shift big time in the last 10 to 15 years, especially after a lot of private hospitals have come in because of commercialization of the business of medical industry, right? Because now you have targets as well to achieve certain I mean, whatever surgeries, or if you're a pulmonologist, you need to see these many people in a day to be able to earn your revenue, and the hospital earns that revenue in that way, etc. Now, all of the resident doctors are also consultant doctors in other hospitals, so there is sharing of resources happening already. They have their own clinics where they practice their profession. And more than that, moreover, above that, I think they are also part of other ecosystem to teach medical to other students in the medical colleges. So all of that is happening, and it's up to us to be able to find the right way to spot the right talent who could come and do the work for us and be done with it. That's what Uber did for us post 2012, where we're only gonna leverage their services for that ride. I'm not gonna hire that guy to be there with me for like forever, right? I mean, that's the philosophy that we need to bring in. Now, your question on networking, yeah, fine. They may not be on LinkedIn, but when LinkedIn was not as popular, the simplest thing that I did was I created a WhatsApp group for the fraternity that I belonged. This was in 2013, and that WhatsApp group today is the biggest group for my own fraternity of, I mean, whatever I used to do in my prior role. And people then at least create that environment of sharing knowledge and insights, right? So it can really literally start as small as creating that WhatsApp group, and then use that to, I mean, it's the way of asking, hey, whoever you know, 10 people, you add them onto this group, and ask such every first 15, 20 people who you add, because they are part of your network, to add their people on the network. And that's what network grows, right? And that's what digitization has made possible.
Got you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Anmol. Gopal, we are nearing the end of our time, but there may be a few more questions. Can people connect with you on LinkedIn and ask?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. Great. Well, thank you so very much. This was an extremely insightful discussion, and clearly, judging by the number of questions, a very helpful one as well for everyone. Before we bring this to a final close, I would just like to call upon Sapna to make a quick announcement and say the final thanks. Yeah, go ahead, Sapna.
Thank you so much, Bhavna. Thanks, Gopal, for such a wonderful session. It was really informative and very insightful to know about such great learnings on gig economy and the gig entrepreneur, and how to, uh, learn about networking and a LinkedIn profile, and how useful it is to, have a personal brand, and how about learning mindset and, the elevator pitch and everything you shared today. And thank you everyone for your time and taking out time on Saturday morning. It was a wonderful session and a great participation from you all. And I would request you all to please take some moment and share your feedback with us. We'll connect with you over the email, and also a lot of us are already, a lot of you are already a part of the community, but we'll get in touch on email, and to make you a part of our LinkedIn and Facebook WhatsApp group as well. And I'm sharing a link with you all here, and please share a small feedback with us about the key takeaways and learnings of the session. And we'll also share with the participants the the recording of the session. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great weekend ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you all joining today, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you, Gopal.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
you, everyone.
Thank you.
A wonderful session. Thanks.
Thank you.
Last but not least, Gopal, can